This is a quick summary of how the assessments for this course work. Starting here in the console, you'll notice there are 6 modules and a section here at the bottom for the final assessment. And because this course is rolled out in increments, the first 2 modules are released in week 1. The next 2 modules, modules 3 and 4, are released in the second week. And the final 2 modules, modules 5 and 6, are released at the start of the third week. The final assessment is delivered at the start of the 4th week. So what we're seeing here is the content made available in the 4th week, and that includes all the modules, all of the labs, and the final assessment. Now a quick view of where these assessments are located in the course. For Module 1 it's here. For Module 2 it's here. And this is what's released in the first week. And you'll notice here in Module 2 there are 3 labs, and those labs are also part of the assessment. And I'll give you a bit more on how those fit in a bit later. But down here in Module 3 there's an assessment. There's the Module 4 assessment, and so on till you reach the final assessment down here. Now let's jump over here to the Progress tab to get an idea how the assessments, Modules 1 through 6, the final assessment, and those 6 lab assessments are all rolled up to determine your final score. And right away you'll notice here this is the progress for a sample student who's already engaged in 4 of the 6 labs that are going to be scored. Now keep in mind there are 11 labs in this course, but we are only scoring 6 of those labs. But for now, let's concentrate on the module assessments and the final assessment, these areas here, and how they contribute to the total score over here. As seen at this point, the student is currently at 17%, and the passing score for this course is 70% or greater, so a bit more work has to be done for sure. Now the best way to look at this is to consider the module assessments, the final assessment, and the lab assessments as thirds that contribute to your score. So hypothetically, this bar or histogram here, the total score, will be built upon a contribution from all 3 assessment types. And you need to do something with all 3 of these types to attain a score of 70% or greater, and I'll give you a bit more about that in a minute. But for now, let's drop down the page and look at how the assessments are represented. Let's start on Module 1. You'll see here the questions for Module 1 assessment and the possible points. Some are 1 point and some are 4 and 5 points, as seen here. Moving down to Module 2 assessment, you'll notice a few more questions are scored. This module has a bit more information, that's 3 labs, and frankly, more challenging than Module 1, so that's why. In any case, here are the question scores for that module. And while we're here, let's take a look at the labs. Lab 1, Lab 2, and here's Lab 3. And again, to reiterate, there are a total of 11 labs in this course, but we're only scoring 6 of those labs. And it turns out that these 3 labs seen here are in fact 3 of the 6 scored labs. Moving down, we'll see Module 3 assessments, Module 4, 5, and Module 6. And then here the final course assessment, which contains most of the questions. So moving back up to the top of the progress page, we'll notice again that there is progress that has been measured so far already for working on 4 of the 6 labs. But for now I'm going to hop over to the courseware tab, and I'll work through a few of the assessment questions to get an idea how they impact the scoring on the progress tab. So we'll start here in Module 1 and walk through a couple of the sample questions. And for this particular question, we see it contains 5 sections that need to be addressed. And here are the options on the list. But first, take a look down here where it says you have used 0 of 2 submissions. And all that means is you have 2 attempts at this question. So let's go ahead and try our first attempt. What I'll do is I'll just breeze through this question for demo purposes. And there. And I can click Save here to save the attempt at answering the question and come back to it later, which I'll do now. Or I can click here on Check to see if I got any or all of this question right. And well, I certainly didn't get much of this right, but I'm off the hook, it's a demo. But the things to note here are the red X's, and that just means it's a miss, and the green check mark, and that indicates success. And also says here you have used 1 of 2 submissions, so that means I have another attempt available to get this right. But the next attempt can't be done for another 24 hours, and that just means I have a day or so to go think about this and come back and try again and try and improve. So for the purposes of this demo, we're going to go ahead 24 hours and pick it up, and I'll try it again. And so let me walk through this retry with different possibilities this time. And I'm only going to focus on those I got wrong. The one I got right I'm going to leave because I got it right. And then I'll click Save. It's just a habit. It's retained, and now I'm pretty sure I got this right. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Final Check. And there it is, much improved. It's a demo after all. And notice I've been told that I've used both submissions, and now I can actually do no more with this question, but I got a perfect score here, so I'm pretty happy. So I'm going to do a couple more of these questions, and at this point I'm going to hop back over to the progress section and to show the kind of before and after, where before means I've done no assessment questions, and after we show the results up to now from my sample questions. So I'm going to do a refresh, and I see the impact on Module 1, and that's 8% of the possible points of all questions for this module have been earned. So you get the point. And down here you see which questions have points and how they rack up. Now again, for demo purposes, I'm going to work my way through the assessments for modules 1 through 6 and then work on the final assessment as well. But I won't be doing much additional work on those 6 labs. And I'll come back and we'll take another look at the progress page. And here you can see it's been pretty good progress. I'm at 58% overall, and I want to see the total score here head closer to and even beyond 70%, so I have more work to do. Now something to keep in mind here is you certainly don't need to have every representation cross over 70%. In other words, each one of these histograms, some can be up to 80, 90, some can be lower. And notice here that for Module 3 I'm somewhere in the neighborhood of 60%. But my module average for all 6 modules seen here is pretty strong. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a greater impact probably if I go over here and work on that final assessment section and take a look at some of the questions there. And hopefully have greater impact on the overall score, and that would be the darker hue of burgundy here. So I'll go off and work on the final assessment and try and improve. So back shortly. And here you can see I've done more work and the final assessment has improved. So what I'll do is go back and work on the final assessment questions again. And here you see I'm at 68%, which is encouraging. So I'm going to go back to that final assessment and try again. And you get the point. I'm now at 69%. And why not keep going? So I'm going to try. And here I've hit 70%, which is where I need to be to pass. And over here, notice that the final assessment is over 70% as well. And one more time, just for good measure, and I'm at 72%. Now this is obviously only for demo purposes, so I could have rolled off the final assessment and focused on the lab assessments, which I have quite a bit of latitude here. Or perhaps I could have boosted the Module 3 or Module 6 assessment. But the point is to obtain 70% for an overall total. Our contributions from the assessments in Modules 1 through 6, the final assessment, and the lab assessments. I probably would have spent more time on the scored labs given the potential points in Labs 2 and then 5 and 6, which are untouched. And even though that sounds purely strategic, I actually prefer doing labs. So you have a choice how you want to approach that 70% mark. Alright, enough of that. Now a little bit more about those 6 scored labs as they relate to this progress page. And please do take time to watch the next video on how the Microsoft Labs Online work. But for now, down here again we see the 3 scored labs for Module 2. And notice they say problem scores. And notice here I have one that's 1 of 1, which means a perfect score for that lab. And here I have 0.4 of 1 in this lab, means I got partial credit. And unlike the assessment questions where I can have up to 2 attempts to earn the credit, labs can be attempted as many times as you please to improve your score. So I'll probably take another shot at Lab 2 anyway. Now we're just about done here, but I do want to draw your attention to the Module 4 labs here to show that there are practice scores. And these are different than the problem scores we saw up in Module 2 for those labs. And that just means when you see practice scores that completing them and scoring them doesn't impact your overall total at all. But you should still try and attempt those anyway because it's all about learning. And these labs are just as beneficial as any of the others in this course. Okay, so that's it. That's how the assessment scoring is done for this course. And remember to take a look at that next video, which will help you understand how Microsoft Labs Online work and how they contribute to the total scoring.